hear the phrase high functioning anxiety, and I think a lot of women will wear that like a badge sometimes, to be honest, like a badge of honor. And I have to tell you, it's not, because high functioning anxiety is just the fast lane into burnout. And again, just because I can doesn't mean I should.
Yeah.
It's okay to say no to things, because when I say no to things, I'm actually saying yes to better opportunities and better things.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Best You interview series. It's Gary here again. Thank you very, very much as always for taking the time to join me today. And today I'm joined by the co-founders of Serendipitous Rebel, Wendy Guth and Krystal Eicher, who are here to discuss women in entrepreneurship and their proprietary SAVOUR framework. At Serendipitous Rebel, Krystal and Wendy are always connecting with women in the thick of growing their businesses, and they see the appetite for real talk on what it actually takes to build a business around your life and not the other way around. Their conversations typically blend hard-earned lessons from their own journeys, practical tools, and a candid perspective on the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. Between them, Wendy and Krystal have a mix of focus on coaching, resilience, and authentic marketing. Their broader community of over 5,000 women are hungry for the kind of grounded advice and encouragement that they strive to share. Krystal and Wendy, I am delighted I got your names correct, and I can't thank you enough for joining me on the show today.
Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
I'm delighted we could make this happen. And do you know the interesting thing? I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time, because when we had a chance to chat previously in preparation for the recording, there was an observation that I had shared with you in terms of that you had approached me over email to say, hey, listen, this is who we are. We like what you're doing. We would love to come and talk about this. And it was really a highlight for me, because I do get a lot of emails like that, and very, very few from females. And we started to kind of just banter a wee bit about how that was, and we talked about, that hesitation of sending that email and that hesitation of clicking the button and then kind of waiting for the reply and all the other potential, somewhat distractive emotions that go with that. So I'm absolutely delighted that you did so, and I'm looking forward to the energy that we're going to share together today. And so I like to start off by understanding the journey a wee bit better, and what brought you folks together, and how and where the inspiration came from to say there are women out there that are trying to do some kind of cool things and they need some help, and we are the people that would be the best position to help them. How did that all come about?
In a really Forrest Gump sort of way, to be honest. It's kind of my but I'll start kind of from my intersection into the online entrepreneurial space was I had decided that I wanted to go back to work. I was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and I'll be completely honest, I hated being a stay-at-home mom. And it's not to say that there's not anything fulfilling about that, and that's amazing for people who do it. I have huge respect for people who do it and do it well and enjoy doing it. I really missed working. When my daughter was born, she was born with special needs. So traditional 9-to-5 was just not working. So I had to be creative on, okay, I want to go back into the world. I come from the marketing world. I come from corporate event planning.
Right.
What can I do? And it kind of came across my lap to run your own travel business. And I had lived all over Germany, and I thought, well, this was a great opportunity to do something that I knew well, and I could plan travel. And as it turned out, I was really, really great at marketing my business. I was really, really great at mentoring other people to market their business. I hated being a travel agent. And it was kind of one of those things that if you don't work in this world that we do of running your business, and you don't come from a family who does that sort of thing, you have no perspective or really no imagination of what is possible. And so I didn't know I could have a business where I consulted or I taught people how to do this. I didn't know that was a thing. In fact, I think a lot of my family still thinks I have a made up job. And that's okay. They can think that all they want. I'm still collecting my paycheck. But it's interesting because when I was in the transition of all of these things, I wanted to do something. I was good at doing something. I just didn't like the model that I had chosen myself to do it. And that's kind of when I met Wendy. And Wendy and I came together during the COVID year of we were you're right. That was right before that. You were correct. And we came together before that. We were teaching marketing courses in summits together.
Yeah.
Right.
And we were co-working. We started working together though during the COVID year. And it was through Wendy that I kind of had learned like, oh yeah, there's like these other opportunities that I could do what I love doing and not have to plan other people's airfare at the same time.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do that.
So, I mean, I'm going to let Wendy share her backstory a little bit.
Yeah, and mine is different in that I was in the meetings industry in the corporate and nonprofit side, and I did that for a lot of years. And I hit 50 years old in actually 2016, and I lost my job. They had realized that they could pay more people less. So they're like, yeah, we're just going to replace you. And I was, on the one hand, really happy because I felt that the job had been one of those, the golden handcuffs. The benefits were great. And, you know, the salary was really good, but I was miserable. And at the time I was a single mom. I was actually dating someone who was stationed in Guam. And as I'm driving home from just being fired, he says to me, come to Guam. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I did. And we ended up getting engaged and then married. And because of his career, I had, like Krystal, I had to be able to be flexible. I had to be able to move around. And we ended up being stationed in somewhere in the Caribbean. And I needed to do something because my kids were in middle school and I was bored out of my skull and I needed something to do. And I also probably came across the same thing that you did, Krystal, and about go into travel. And I had done meetings and it's sort of the same thing. And so I got into travel and I was really, and it was all about transformational travel and the focus on how do you work in really life coaching skills into travel. And I was really excited. And we ended up getting back to the States March of 2020. And as everything slammed shut. So I spent a good bit of time unpackaging travel, unpackaging some meetings that I was doing. And I became I was depressed. And through that actually is how SAVOUR came about. It started with forming the micro habit of walking the dog every single day and getting out of the house. And then some other things incorporated into that. And then we started, in 2018 doing these summits and teaching together. And I remember Krystal saying to me, like at the beginning, we're going to work together. And she pointed like her finger at me. And I was like, whoa, okay. And I was like, but that is the energy that really, really melds well with my not pointing my finger at her. And so, and then as the pandemic started, we, along with the third person, formed a partnership to do membership for travel agents. And Krystal was marketing, I was mindset, and this third person was operations. Operations systems, that kind of thing. And we quickly learned that memberships are not passive income. And that when someone says to you that, well, you know, you get to work a third of the time and make, you know, 3 times the money or something ridiculous like that, it's kind of BS. So it was an interesting time. And I, at the time, was really aggressively pursuing coaching certifications. One of my character strengths is a love of learning, which means I over learn, over credential. But it was wonderful. And I started doing, actually, under my original business of Rebel on the Go, started doing some coaching. And that's when I started to realize, if I'm wanting to do stuff separately, this may not be the best option for me. And I think, Krystal, you were also thinking that at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. And I think what's interesting in that iteration of business, because Serendipitous Rebel, our business now, is the second partnership that Wendy and I ventured in together. And in that first one, we had this third party, and it was in a business model that wasn't in alignment. Again, it was still working in the travel industry. I don't think that was our jive either. And I think it was a perfect example of, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Because actually, I think that there's a little bit of, you can actually do anything. I always joke, like, everything short of brain surgery is really not that hard if you have the desire to get in and learn it. But that doesn't mean that you're going to love it, and it doesn't mean you work. And that first partnership really was a perfect example of, if you're going to go into a partnership with somebody, anybody who is considering that, listening today, partnerships are really attractive because it can be lonely running your own business, and having that other person to share the load and share the responsibility sounds great. It is a lot like going into a marriage with somebody, though. You got to really know, do you share values? With this other person, we did not have a share of values. Do you share goals? Did not share the same common goals with this third person. I'd liken it to, if you want kids and he doesn't, he is not for you. Run away. Hey. And that's okay. And it doesn't mean it's a huge failure on either side, but it was a painful breakup of a business to get to here. And in Serendipitous Rebel, we really looked at, okay, what do you love about business? What gifts do you have? What lessons did we learn? And what can we build from it? And so that's a really long-winded way to say that's how we got here.
I do really appreciate the journey, and using, what would you say, less than positive experiences, from being a stay-at-home mum is not really my jam. It's not what's really, having me jump out of bed each morning, despite how important it is. The travel industry, it's all right, but there are certain things that are part of it. The corporate job with the golden handcuffs, I like certain parts of it, which are the more material parts and not the actual work in and of itself. And a lot of people would use those opportunities to wallow. A lot of people would use those opportunities to kind of just basically feel sorry for themselves and maybe not take any action. And the great thing that you did was to say there has to be something else. There are certain parts of this, there are learnings that I'm going to get and gain from this that we're going to take on, and we will continue to learn, to the point you were making earlier, Wendy, there, in terms of your continuous thirst for learning and such, So, I mean, it's incredible the way you were able to build on, even if it wasn't a positive experience that you were having or feeling at the moment, to be able to use that for good rather than for something that might just not serve you or anyone else.
Well, and I think that it's probably jumping ahead, but a lot of it was also the concept of SAVOUR was evolving. And that's stepping out of your comfort zone, aligning your passions and purpose. And the purpose piece is huge. And also venturing under your own power. Initially, it meant you need to get out and physically move. But also, as Krystal has helped me really see it, it's also the need to not literally move, but just get your ideas or your business or whatever it is moving forward. And then, the importance of being open to connection and community, unwinding with self-care and ritualizing gratitude and celebration. And together, it's like it's a holistic way to find joy in your life. And I think ultimately when we sat down and really talked about what we wanted, yes, money is important. Yes, feeling that we're being productive is important. But ultimately, it's what brings you joy and how can you have more of it?
Yeah, exactly that. And it was a perfect segue into the SAVOUR framework. So how do you take the SAVOUR framework? How does that walk and talk the women, or walk and guide the women that you work with through? Is it literally chronological from S to R, or is it a journey in and within that? Is it iterative? How does that go?
So
I like to
sorry.
about it. I'm sorry, go ahead, Wendy.
No, you do. It's your turn.
Well, I like to think it when we look at clients like a wheel of life kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where I think that there are some women who have no problem stepping out of their comfort zone. They have no problem being vulnerable, getting down and gritty, trying new things. Okay. I think that some women absolutely are great with the doing of things. Some women are great at incorporating self-care. Most of us struggle in at least one or two of the areas. And so that's why it's such a holistic framework. But I think that it's looking at, okay, who are you? Okay, what is it that you're trying to do? Where are you trying to go? And then making sure that we're working in alignment with all of those things through the coaching and through the consulting. Because I think that a big part that so many coaches in the online space or in business in general miss out is like, who are you as a person? Because who Gary is as a person and what you're balancing in your off time through your teaching or through your personal life or through everything else is very different than who Krystal is as a person with two small kids at home, who's very different than who Wendy is as a person with empty nest, college age kids. Mm-hmm. And so it's looking at those things holistically. So SAVOUR kind of guides that you need all of these things really to be, again, we like to think of this as how you're finding joy in business, because entrepreneurship is hard. It's hard to run your business. This is not for the faint of heart. Anybody who tells you it's easy, everybody can do it, they're lying. But it is worth it if you can find that alignment and that passion and that peace, because there are so many people bringing so many good things into this world that Wendy and I really do think that if we can help facilitate that in a joyful way, that's how we're making the world a better place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it is really looking at them individually, because some people are again, they're bold, they're amazing. They're just not in alignment because they're trying to build a 6-figure business by selling a $20 offer. How can we start to pull those pieces together?
Yeah.
And the only thing I would add is there are certain pillars that, you don't necessarily have to step out of your comfort zone every single day. To be honest, that sounds sort of exhausting, as does constantly looking at your, alignment of your passions and purpose. So once you sort of have them in place, it makes sense to look at things seasonally just to make sure you're still on track, and be able to ask yourself the question, is what I'm doing, am I a little uncomfortable? Because that can be exciting and things like that, or is this aligned? But things like even the physical venturing under your own power, the connection in the community, and the unwinding with self-care and gratitude, those are things I think that should be done on a daily basis. That to really intentionally, how am I moving my body? How am I getting out and doing things? How am I connecting with people? Again, a lot of us live in silos. I'm lucky. I get to talk to Krystal every single day. I talk to her more than I talk to my husband, which is not a bad thing. I'm sure he'll enjoy hearing that. But it's we are creatures that need certain things, and self-care is huge. And really going to bed and waking up grateful, whatever that looks like and whatever celebration looks like, really, these are things that you can do on a daily basis. And it doesn't have to be hard, but really to make sure that you're incorporating these things. And then when you have the big, hairy changes to your goals and things like that, I think it's easier when those other pieces are already established.
Yeah. Yeah, the baselines, just knowing and understanding what they are, what they mean for you, and how you can make these incremental or maybe sometimes monumental changes for each of them. In terms of like building the business, you mentioned earlier, this is the second iteration. You had this model that was kind of almost there, but not exactly still in alignment with where you were wanting to go. You get the alignment, you bring yourselves together, you create the partnership. As you mentioned earlier, it's not an easy thing to do on a daily basis to be able to continue to sustain, maintain, or grow your business. What would you say has been the biggest challenge that you've faced, personally and collectively? And we'll start with Wendy and getting your business to where it is.
I think the biggest challenge, well, for me personally, is I am an ideator. I don't necessarily pull that trigger. So for me, actually, when you looked at the changes in venturing under your own power, that's something I do need to work on, because I can ideate till the cows come home. I love doing it. We call them, what do we call them? Demon babies. And I have to start Voxers with Krystal by saying, this is a demon baby, so she doesn't hyperventilate on me. And that has always been, I like to, so that's always, and that's actually why I think the partnership is so wonderful, because we balance each other out in those areas. So that was definitely, and I think realizing early on that the importance of being super flexible. That was also because even in the time before Serendipitous Rebel, I still had some of that corporate stuff clogging. And a lot of it was, you have to be productive. That means you have to be sitting and working and doing, which of course spirals into burnout and a lot of other things. So learning just to be flexible and relax. Less of a challenge, but still working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me, one of the biggest challenges was letting myself be vulnerable with Wendy or in the capacity of our business, which I think we've been working. The Serendipitous Rebel just entered in its 4th year. And I feel like this is not an issue as much anymore, but I know at the beginning, being able to go to her and say, I don't have the capacity for the million ideas that you're throwing at me. and fighting back a little bit on that, because I think in business, I brought in, personal, when you own a business, your personal and your business is just one and the same. And I brought in a lot of people pleasing energy and a lot of performative energy of, I call it like the eldest daughter energy. Like, we got it, and we got it until we don't got it anymore. And being able to say, hey, we need to look at this. We need to simplify this. We need to slow this down. I took very much as a personal failing. And now it's one of our biggest strengths to say, wait, pause. This isn't working. I need to cry uncle at some point, because I think that I have, you hear the phrase high functioning anxiety. And I think a lot of women will wear that like a badge sometimes, to be honest, like a badge of honor. And I have to tell you, it's not, because high functioning anxiety is just the fast lane into burnout. And again, just because I can doesn't mean I should. It's okay to say no to things, because when I say no to things, I'm actually saying yes to better opportunities and better things, even if it's saying yes to capacity that gives me more creative energy to do things better. And so I can actually say that by saying no to fast tracking timelines and rushing things, what we've said yes to is a better product, a better, even if it's just a better sales page, a better website, a better final product for clients, and getting to be really good about open and honest communication. I mean, I had a thread with a client this morning that they'd come back and I said, yes, we could do that, but not in the time frame that you're working on, and giving them more realistic expectations on what they think. And the reaction was, this is amazing. It's another reason I love working with you. It's just the honesty, right?
Yeah.
And I never thought of being honest, but it is incredibly vulnerable to say no. And so that's been a really big challenge that I think now, just in processing it, has made us better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so powerful. Again, back to what I said earlier, you're using your experiences in and of the moment to continuously get better. And it's now a wonderful opportunity to look back and say 1, 2, 3 years ago, this seemed to be a negative. I felt like it was a failure. And it's actually a superpower. And but just to live through that, to persevere through that, and then use that. If I could say, well, certainly the learnings and the wiseness that comes from that, to be able to impart that to other people, to say, I've been where you are, and this is how I thought and felt at the time, and this is how distracting and unproductive that it was. This is what I did about it. Would you be willing to talk about something that we could maybe give you that would give you an opportunity to move through this quicker than we did? Something along those lines. So one of the things that you mentioned earlier there, Krystal, in terms of the high performing anxiety type situation, what types of women, and actually what types of challenges do women typically have when they come to you for help? And or, not to stack, but I'm going to stack, like, is there a common theme that you see in the types and styles of women that are attracted to your business model?
So most women that come to us, I think, one, they know everything they need to know. They are so smart. They are so capable. Like, we're talking like the best in their fields, right? And yet they lack the confidence to own it. And so, and I did it when I started business. Again, it's like that. It's just like you said, I made that mistake. So let me help you shortchange that mistake. I, at 19 years old, was the event planner for the city of Long Beach. I ran the Olympic swim trials in, was it 2005? Okay. And yet I came to start my online business and thought I needed a course to teach me how to market my business. Well, stupid. I have a degree. I have all this professional background. And I think we forget that we bring the collective wisdom of our lives are not individual books. They are chapters in the same book. And we forget to bring that common thread with us. Okay. So most women, I think, come to us because they are overwhelmed, because then at the same time, when you start a business, you are bombarded every day. I bet if you opened up your social media feed, you'd see about 10 advertisements telling you all the things you're doing wrong and how they can help. Okay. And here's the thing. They're just trying to sell you a program. It's not necessarily a solution for you that will work for you. But you start to think, because again, this is out of your comfort zone. You're not really sure. This is a different language. We speak a different language in the entrepreneurial space, especially in online business. We say words like funnels, which, guys, are just websites, or we say things like autoresponders. It's just your email service. But we throw this complicated jargon to think that we're gatekeeping KPIs and CTRs and things like that. And it really, I think when women come to us, we offer this idea that here we really want to we want to simplify the jargon. We want to simplify and give you some streamlined strategy, cut down the noise, because I think most people really come to us because they're bombarded with so much noise. And then if you compound it with the lack of confidence in yourself, you end up with this Frankenstein business where you've tried a little bit of this, and tried a little bit of this, and tried a little bit of this, and nothing's actually working for you.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you take that confidence, Wendy, and quickly transpose it into something actionable, for somebody in the earlier stages of their journey with you?
Well, first, it's making sure that you're in alignment. That is so important. And then from there, it's, when you talk about burnout, what is that? Well, it's the depletion of energy. And if it's not, has nothing to do with, say, the alignment and you really are aligned, what is it that you can do? Well, we talk a lot. We actually just recently recorded a podcast that talked about transitions. It's figuring out how do you, we also talk a lot about wearing hats. How do you juggle the pieces that are in your life in such a way that you're giving ample amount of time and then allowing for the right energy to be sustained? For example, Krystal was talking about one day, was it this week or last week? Days are running in, where she wore 10 hats before 8 a.m. Again, I'm in a slightly different space because my kids aren't home anymore, but I still, and I thought about it, and I probably wore 4 hats before 8 a.m. And so what do? Well, it's creating the systems to be able to allow for space to breathe and to transition from one thing to the next. And whether it's he's saying something like, mom hat's coming off, CEO hat is coming on, whatever it is to trigger in your mind and, in your system that says, okay, I'm moving on. And it seems so simple, but it's not. It's not simple. Telling someone, well, in between, take that 10 minutes and breathe. I can't do that. That's not a productive use of my time. Actually, it really is. Because if you think about it, or go outside and do jumping jacks, whatever it is, I should try that today on my bad knee. But whatever it is, it's allowing your body and your mind to reset. And that's so important. And we don't think of ourselves as being holistic beings. We're moms, we're wives, we're entrepreneurs, whatever, but we don't really see ourselves as being a complete holistic being. That requires a lot of different things. So we really try to encourage our clients. It's strategy plus it's a lot more.
Yeah, and I think that opportunity, breathe, is the main word that I have in my head here, where a lot of people, you mentioned earlier, Wendy, in the corporate culture, you need to be present, physically or virtually. You need to look like you're working every day, to be able to justify your position and for people to think, know or understand the value that you're adding. And in a corporate setting, I would imagine if someone were to walk down the hallway in some way and see someone just sitting without their fingers on the keyboards or anything like that, and they're just breathing, that someone at some point would say, did you bash your head in the shower this morning? Are you all right? Exactly. Is everything okay? So there's probably a lot of behavior there that has to be relearned in a different context and in a different way to give them that opportunity to say,
definitely,
if you don't work, if you're not aligned, nothing else will be aligned. You may have the odd fluke now and again, but there won't be discernible, predictable outcomes, positive outcomes to what you're doing without that alignment. How quickly do people pick up on that, typically?
I would say it depends. I actually think most people are very resistant to it first. And I think it goes back to, I think when you're in that frantic piece, it's fear driven, right? And it's scary to be a business owner. Okay. I think that's the difference. When you think about that person, you said sitting at your desk in the corporate world, I wasn't the final decision maker always. I mean, I was when I was the leader at the top, and it was stressful. Don't get me wrong, but there were checks and balances. There were other people that worked for me to execute certain things. I had teammates that I relied on and worked on things. And I think that, again, it's part why so much of our business model incorporates community in it with our retreats and not just coaching, because I think the community aspect of corporate is what takes the pressure sometimes off of a lot of that stress and strain. And when you have the person sitting alone, you know, Wendy and I don't even live in the same state, for example. And, you know, we're talking to you in a completely different country, right? We're so siloed and so spread out, right? But at the end of the day, I'm going to turn off, when we're done recording this, I'm going to turn off my computer and I'm going to be sitting in my office by myself and my really stinky dog sitting over here next to me. But I think that it can feel very lonely and you can start internalizing a lot of that pressure. And so I think giving people that community outreach, that person to bounce things off of ideas, that's why I know we hear a lot right now about AI is coming. Well, AI is here and we're incorporating it into our stuff as fast as possible. And so a lot of people are like, why do I need to hire a coach or hire a strategist or hire somebody? I could just talk to AI. But it misses that human connection piece.
Yeah.
That is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the water cooler. And the fact that the one thing that most of us have missed, and that was really missed during the pandemic, was the ability to just bump into people at the water cooler, grabbing a cup of coffee, whatever it is, and having that interaction that doesn't even necessarily have to be about work. It could be, how's your day? You know, who's going to win the Super Bowl? Whatever it is, but conversations that help to regulate your blood pressure, your breathing, all those important things that we don't necessarily have as entrepreneurs. So we do try to replicate those type of feelings and activities, whether it's on our retreat or with our clients.
Yeah. And in terms of the community, you mentioned retreats and such. What does the structure of the community look like for someone who's considering being involved with Serendipitous Rebel?
So we run 2 in-person retreats a year with our clients and community. And we actually choose to host them on Virgin Voyage Cruise because of 2 reasons. One, it's a heck of a lot of fun. And 2, it gives you the absolute opportunity to completely disconnect, which I think is a really vital component to going on a retreat. I think if you're going to go away, you really need to be a little bit disconnected so that you have the space and clarity to think. They are 5 days in person. We start with working breakfast, and then we actually are, I think, unique in that we don't host really strict agendas. People come with their problems, and we're there to collectively, as a group, solve them. And that is done through, because if you think about your biggest ahas and breakthroughs as a business owner, think about that last in-person event you went to. It was very, very rarely given by the keynote speaker or the guru at the front of the room. It was through an aha connection with a colleague or somebody else over coffee at lunch. And then you had to stop that conversation and go back to a really boring death by PowerPoint presentation over here. And so we got rid of all of that. And we're really here just to facilitate the conversations and facilitate the ability to rest. Wendy will have us stepping out of our comfort zone with a boy band dance class, or I don't even know what you've signed us up for in April, but with some sort of shenanigans to get your body moving. You're there to decompress, have fun, but open up your laptop and let's talk about what you're struggling with and what you're working with, and let's get it done and get it over the finish line and get it working. So it's 5 days at sea of camaraderie, co-working, and using not just the wisdom of Wendy and I, which we are there to give freely, but the collective wisdom of the participants as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the sentiment of the being on the water and being that ability for disconnect. That's what I was going to say. You know, the ability to, you know, you can get access to internet and such like that on cruises. Sure. However, just the vastness of the surrounding water and the opportunity to focus on yourself, focus on the challenges, focus on helping serve other people, focus on being served at the same time. It sounds like an absolutely brilliant time. So I would love to know more about this, but in the interest of time, I do have two final questions that I always like to pose, and I'll start with Wendy on this one. What's one regular practice that Wendy employs to give yourself the best opportunity to be the best version of yourself?
I row almost every day. So if I want to be super creative that day, catch me right after that. But I have found that the physical movement has been absolutely a requirement. And I know this especially because I just had knee surgeries actually on both my knees. And I have not been a pleasant person to be around. Krystal can attest to that. But
unpleasant.
Yeah.
It means,
But,
yes.
yeah.
Definitely
But
difference between
yeah. But it's and really the thing is setting priorities, setting boundaries, and incorporating really physical movement into my day has been the most important thing that I do. Yeah.
Tremendous. Excellent. And rowing is so good for you too. Krystal.
I think that I have just been more intentional. No, now I'm making up words. More intentional about scheduling in the things that I know are good for me. So for me, I'm not a rower. You'd think, man, that's not that hard. Yeah, I've tried rowing with Wendy. It's ridiculous. But I do Pilates, and I make sure to intentionally schedule my workout time into my schedule and make it non-negotiable. But in addition to that, scheduling in lunches with friends, scheduling in date nights with my husband, scheduling in vacations and travel. Next week, I was sharing with you before we hit record, we're going to take the kids to Calgary next week and go into Banff. I have had a very big shift in my life the last several years that life is so precious. And I think you know it, but there's like knowing it, and then there's like viscerally knowing it the way I feel like I've been called to. In this big one beautiful life, my life is not meant to be working 60 hours a week for a lot of money, though I could do that and that'd be great. So I could have a big house and a big car and all the things. I really just want to live my life. So I very intentionally want to put in the time and make sure it's on the calendar. And I'm going to fit everything around that.
Yeah. Incredible. The intentionality of everything that you're doing. Before I let you go, where can people find out more about Serendipitous Rebel?
So we hang out mostly on Instagram at Serendipitous Rebel. You can find us on our website, serendipitousrebel.com. And we also have a podcast, the Serendipitous Rebel podcast. And so those are the three places that you can find us the most in this great big online space.
Excellent. This has been so educational and such a, I don't typically interview two people at the same time, and to get that dynamic it's been really energizing. You know, I mentioned energy at the beginning of the show, and it's been very uplifting, very energizing, very entertaining, very educational as well. So thank you very, very much, Wendy and Krystal, for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
So much.